Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Read the Bible with me. I'm Stan Jr., and today we're looking at chapter 1 of the book of Esther. Yes, we're starting a new book today, the famous and very notable book of Esther. Now, as we look at this book, I want to read an introduction to it, and then we'll read the chapter here after that. If you're new here, go ahead and click the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell. And if you're a Bible Club member, go ahead and like this video and leave a comment below. I'm grateful for all of the Bible Club members that help support this ministry to make it what it is. As you know, we take a portion of your gift and we send it to buy Bibles and send missionaries into the missionary field every single month. We partner with Voices of Martyrs, and we do that each month. So thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do it without you, honestly. Let's look at let's look at the book of Esther. Just a quick overview, and then we'll get right into the chapter. It says the book of Esther never mentions God's name, yet God clearly orchestrated all of its events. Esther, a Jew living among the exiles in Persia, became queen of the empire in about 480 BC. Haman, a Persian official, sought to eradicate the Jewish minority, but God had prepared Esther for such a time as this. Chapter 4, verse 14. So, to save his covenant people, the book was written some decades later to document the origins of the Jewish observance of Purim, which celebrates Israel's survival of God's faithfulness. The author is unknown, but some believe it could have been Esther's cousin, Mordecai, who is a key person in the book. Throughout the book, we see God's sovereign hand preserving his people, showing that everything is under his control. So that's the overview. Let's look at chapter 1 of the book of Esther. It says, now in the days of Ahasuerus, the Ahasuerus, who reigned from India to Ethiopia over 127 provinces. In those days, when King Ahasuerus sat on his royal throne in Susa, the capital, in the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a feast for all of his officials and servants. The army of Persia and Media and the nobles of the governors of the provinces were before him, while he showed the riches of his royal glory and the splendor and pomp of his greatness for many days. 180 days just showing his wealth. You know, this looks like people hosting big parties and everybody famous coming to them, stuff like that. And so, when these days were completed, the king gave for all the people a present in Susa, the citadel, both great and small, a feast lasting for 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. There were white cotton curtains and violet hanging fastened with cords of fine linen and purple and silver rods and marble pillars, and also couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, and precious stones. Drinks were served in golden vessels of different kinds, and the royal wine was lavished according to the bounty of the king. And drinking was according to his edict. There is no compulsion, for the king had given orders to all the staff of his palace to do as each man desired. So what that means is he made a rule that you cannot say no when the person is too drunk to keep drinking. You know, all these rules that we have with bartenders that they can't serve a person, they can't continue to serve a person that they know is getting too drunk to drive, too drunk to whatever. And so he said, though, there is no compulsion, meaning you cannot stop them. If they want another drink, you give it to them if they ask for it. So they're all drunk, and there's a bunch of men, and there's a party going on. It's a lot of egos going on. Everybody's talking about their wealth and their money, enjoying their wealth and their money. And then Queen Vashti also gave a feast for the women in the palace that belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mahuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha and Abagtha, Zethar and Carcass, the 7 eunuchs who served in the presence of the king Ahasuerus to bring Queen Vashti before the king with her royal crown, in order to show the peoples and the princes her beauty, for she was lovely to look at. So he just wanted to parade her around and show her like she's a trophy. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command delivered by the eunuchs. And at this, the king became enraged, and his anger burned within him. Then the king said to the wise men who knew the times, for this was the king's procedure toward all who were versed in law and judgment, and the men next to him being Karshina, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Mersina, Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, who saw the king's face and sat first in the kingdom. According to the law, what is it to be done to Queen Vashti, because she has not performed a command of the king Ahasuerus? Ahasuerus delivered by the eunuchs. Then Memucan said in the presence of the king and the officials, not only against the king has Queen Vashti done wrong, but also against all the officials and all the peoples who are in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus. For the queen's behavior will be made known to all women, causing them to look at their husbands with contempt, since they will say King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, and she did not come. This very day the noble women of Persia and Media who have heard of the queen's behavior will say the same to the king's officials, and there will be contempt and wrath in plenty. If it please the king, let a royal order go out from him, and let it be written among the laws of Persians and the Medes, so that it may not be repealed, that Vashti is never again to come before King Ahasuerus. And let the king give her royal position to another who is better than she. So when the decree made by the king is proclaimed throughout all his kingdom, for it is vast, all women will give honor to their husbands, high and low alike. This advice pleased the king and the princes, and the king did as Memucan proposed. He sent letters to all the royal provinces, to every province in its own script, and to every people in its own language, and every man be master in his own household, and speak according to the language of his people. So we see this is a very toxic toxic masculinity situation here. What it is you have a bunch of men who are unsubmitted in their hearts to their women, and especially to God. And they are parading women. They are using women. It is really interesting that this book begins with the downplaying or the disgracing of women, right? Devaluing of women. It begins in a place, and what God is going to do with this book is really, really amazing. In a few chapters, he's going to turn it on its head to where you think women are below men because of the way it's set up in chapter 1. But we see how God equalizes this thing out with Esther. And it's very important to read a book like this to show how God can use women, and how he can use young women, and how he can use a woman that will trust him just like a man will trust him. All right? He can use you, period. Doesn't matter what your gender is. He can use you. So that was chapter 1 of the book of Esther, just setting us up for what's about to come. Most of us know the story, but I always look for the little things that kind of set it apart. The things in our head that were, oh, I didn't think of it like that. I didn't see it like that. So in chapter 1 of the book of Esther, thank you so much for reading with me. I love you, and I'm thankful that you keep me company as we read together in the Bible Club, reading the Bible every day, 1 chapter a day, every day. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. We'll be reading chapter 2 of the book of Esther. Very excited to get into this book and see what God has for us along the journey every day, y'all. Be consistent, and there's a blessing in consistency that I can't tell you. You must experience for yourself. All right. See you next time. We'll be reading chapter 2. If you'd like to become a Bible Club member, you can click the link in the description. God bless you. Peace.